given to the libraries of the respective campuses. I know Lira attending, please, this material will be able to reach you in time. So thank you so much. We had only one question, and it was going to David and Dennis. Just a second. What type of experts are common? This is a question from Curtis from EY. He said, what type of experts are common in supporting the dispute resolution process? So Dennis or David?
Thank you very much. I'll speak about construction. The experts that are commonly used in resolving of construction disputes highly depend on the nature of remedy that you want from the arbitrator. If the remedy is about quantum, which is money, usually the commonest expert that is used is a quantity surveyor, because they are the ones that come up with quantities. If the remedy that you want is extension of time, which I'll discuss this in detail, they are delay experts, the people who make delay analysis reports. And if the remedy that you want is in regard to who is responsible for the quality of work done, then you may need a structural engineer. So it basically depends on the remedy that you want.
Are there any questions from the audience? Please don't be shy. Don't be shy. This is your opportunity to shine on the international stage. Please. So, if we have no questions for the audience, I would like to thank my panel again for the opportunity. Anyone? I'd like to thank the panel again, and then I'd like to thank Yamana Diawara and welcome officially to the Pearl of Africa. As you see, this is the best and the brightest of the population. So we hope in the near future, when you are making appointments, look at the faces, remember them, and then give them their appointment.
Thank you. LDC for bringing these wonderful panelists. I've been following the energy debate, and I want to ask some panelists. Africa, as it is, faces poverty and projects that lead to energy transition require a lot of money, which African governments do not have. What are we doing for the interest of the people that are going to come after us, to see that we protect the resources that we have, the rare earth minerals that we have, to see that they are not given away to multinational companies at a giveaway price. We have an instance where Tesla has started acquiring minerals in its own power, not through advocates or other partners. Isn't it the same thing that is going to happen? And we end up losing.
Thank you very much. I'm Hamilton. I have two simple questions. Number one, we've been trying to evaluate the challenge of energy transition. We talked about technology, the lack of money. But I was more interested to hear from the panel how we address this problem from the grassroots. Because what we're having here is more elite talk to the educated. But the problem emanates from down. So, at sometimes, our governments are reactionary. Somebody comes up with a policy, no cutting trees. But have you addressed the problem why the trees are being cut. So how do we go over that? Thank you.
Members, kindly take your seats. We are about to finish just 10 minutes and then we'll wrap this up.
Thank you so much, Councillor Albert. Thank you so much, our dear panelists. I personally, when I saw this kind of panel, I was so excited. I last saw it, I think, at the start of the year, sitting like this. So I was excited that it was going to come to all this. I have 3 questions. And the first question goes to Council Ennis. I think we can following the discussion. There would have been more than that because of the time constraints. Taking up very much. The first one goes to Council Ennis and it relates to the rate of disputes that commonly arise in the energy sector. You pointed out one of the most common, acts. I've also realized that some of the companies that are coming to invest in the oil sector originate from countries where Uganda has, at the moment, suspended double taxation agreement negotiations. For example, China, where that Uganda suspended its double taxation agreement negotiations with China, and many of these are still under review. In such circumstances, because when you look at disputes like the travel disputes and all that, I believe, I know the arrangements between Uganda and those different countries where the companies originated played a great role in ensuring that these disputes are resolved. So, what are we doing in that kind of area of disputes? Then another one goes to Madam Nanda. It's in relation to climate financing. Some time back I was seeing Nairobi and it was giving a report on how best it had performed in as far as obtaining funds or other climate financing was concerned. And most of any initiative in undertaking domestic climate financing as a country that is going to cater for the small-scale sector, the small-scale investors. Another one is in harmonizing the interests of the different stakeholders. What are we doing on that? Because in the private sector is also crying, saying that the government is not coming forward. So as key stakeholders in this line of practice, what are we doing in ensuring that policies are in place that are going to harmonize expectations between the government, the greatest stakeholder, and the private sector foundation, private sector, especially the small scale and medium investors. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you very much, I would have done a service if I didn't say anything on the international forum like this one. First and foremost, I'm very grateful and I follow the discussions very carefully and we are very happy. From the start, I would have been disorganized, but later on when Council started talking about arbitration and how our guys are involved in arbitration. Now before I begin to start among these people whom I think you must not forget about them when they finish, at least some of them must have absorbed into that position so that they can get the training. Two, you will find that we have the issue of, like you have said about constructions, which is a very growing industry, because you say that our population is growing too, and we talked about PPTs involving engineers in resolving disputes. I would imagine through this kind of fora and LDC must present the government of Uganda that they are brilliant lawyers here who have been trained in areas and that when those kind of disputes are right there to one, solve this problem. And this segment is the first segment of the change of policy. So the last one is that you have also talked about the energy, and like my colleague said, most of us, the elites, we may think this kind of information. How can this organization help with the Ugandan elites here to transmit this information to the village so that we can have a better energy sustainable growth in this country? Thank you very much, Mr.
Unfortunately, they are coming in when you are running out of time and people are tired. But someone hinted about the effect on the grassroots people, at the grassroots level. How do we reach them? How do we make sure that the energy transition policies and statements we are making at the national or regional level are actually understood by someone deep down in my grandmother's village? So that's an issue for the policymakers, for the civil society. So it's about stakeholder approach. Not one person can do it. So how do we sensitize these people? How do we tell them, if you cut down that tree, you're destroying the future for your great-grandchildren? If you are using wood, if you are using charcoal in a small house, you are inhaling carbon monoxide. It's going to be harmful for your health. So that would require a whole range of interventions. We cannot dig into them at this point. And then an interesting one was about getting value out of our resources. Now that we spoke about critical minerals, we all are still poor. The poverty lines are still very high in Africa. And then how do we make sure that the resources we are extracting today are going to be beneficial for the future generations? When we talk about extractives especially, these are finite resources. Once you take copper out of the ground, you can't put it back. So how do we make sure that the future generations are going to benefit from whatever we are doing today? And that's where issues of sustainability are going to come in. Taking care of the future generation, issues of infra and intergenerational equity. Let's start with pathways. Number one, the African mining vision today is talking about value addition out of the continent. Can we add value to them? Can we get more revenue out of our resources? We are now championing global content requirements. Can we have more involvement of all our people throughout the value chain of these, the energy and the mineral resources? So local content, and then we have forward and backward linkages, which we hinted on, though briefly. So our economy benefiting, agriculture, education, health, infrastructure, tourism. How do we make sure that all the other sectors of the economy do benefit from the resources we have today? But then, most importantly, is the issue of revenue management. How do we manage the resources that accrue from these resources? Governance is key in that.
Thank you very much for those very fascinating questions. And again, as I said in the beginning, it's nice to see that we're in a forum as such where we have legal minds all come to our PhD forum because we get to have conversations that matter. Straight to the questions on exploitation, especially of minerals and other resources that are quite in abundance in Africa. To circle back to what I said about the beauty of starting from scratch, where the world has gone through many steps, we have a chance to rewrite our story and make regulations and recommendations and guidelines and regulatory frameworks that suit our needs. Specifically, to talk about project design and contract design. As Godfather of arbitration has talked about the contract management through dispute resolution, but he has also been emphatic about, and I think that the moderator, about avoidance. If we are proactive in our approach in project design and therefore contract design, we will be able to look at our bases ahead before the events happen. That is going to take a lot of learning and unlearning, especially in the area of technology. My call to all of us policymakers from an ESG aspect is to become agnostics when it comes to technology. Luckily for us, research and statistics show that when it comes to renewable energy, green financing, and green-minded, unless the forces of demand and supply point us in a direction that leads us what is best practice, be paid in, and I can't emphasize this enough, because luckily when you do a SWOT, we look at the opportunity that we have as Africa right now is the abundance of technology which we have not yet been contractually, like in a supermarket of options. Let us take out what is for us. The other question on climate finance, whether we have interventions that don't depend on donors, the gentleman who asked that, I would like to say yes and no. have not yet allowed us the luxury to do a lot of climate financing, but all hope is not lost. In this global village, there is an indirect way to get our means to one end. So as Dennis mentioned earlier, many of the projects we have, especially infrastructure projects, luckily are done under PPP dispensation, where Uganda can use that route to get climate financing in as a matter of priority. It may not be physically possible in terms of our tax and revenue as a recovering economy with the effects of COVID and all those issues, but we can be intentional about green economic recovery. That means that as we seek funding, we try to align those funders that have our climate interests at hand. The other question was about Nile breweries. Is that the same one? I think those are the three. I don't know water. Okay, I don't remember all the details about the Nile breweries one. I hope somebody can remind us. But even if people call that interest, I'd like to conclude by saying that there are very steps. It's one thing to see where you're going, and another to just want to run. I am a strong believer that we are not where we want to be, but we are definitely in the journey. Very small, meaningful steps are going to be just where we want to go. I can't re-emphasize the importance of regulatory frameworks. So far, it is our only insurance and sure pathway to getting where we want to go without necessarily putting a lot of money in a blank gambling space. We have lessons, we have predecessors, we have willing capacity to be built in this nation and in this continent. Let's be very intentional and move this great thing forward. So thank you very much. I hope I have answered that.
Let me answer the last question on tax. Energy sector, it's an aspiration of government to maximize revenues. And one of the means by which to maximize revenues is through tax imposition. Energy sector, especially the extractives, even more complex is that commodity prices keep fluctuating. Today, a barrel is at $90, the other day it's at $120, the other day it's at $60. And some governments are fiscal industry. When the times are good and they have bumper harvest, they are going to spend wastefully. That even when times are bad, instead of adjusting their expenditure, which is probably the logical thing to do, what they will do is that they will impose new taxes so that they are able to maintain the same levels of their fiscal expenditure. So negotiating tax provisions is always a complex affair. And that is why there's what we call stabilization process, which ensures that even if the law changes, if by the time of investing in Uganda, there was a double tax treaty between Uganda and Netherlands, from which I benefited, that if you suspend it, I am incurring a little bit more tax. It would mean that we have to renegotiate the project agreement to restore the fiscal parity as it was before. There's also another important issue in our tax design of extractive projects is around the issue of what we call expenditure or exemptions. The civil society is quite PhD exemptions, the PhD department is actually causing a lot of it. It could be right, but the way I look at it for me, if you're examining whether a tax change is necessary or not, tax ordinarily should be geared at taxing profits, that's income tax. Tax should not tax investments. If you're bringing in capital equipment for the purposes of extracting minerals, and you impose import duty at the rate of 30% when locally you do not have that equipment, it means that if I have to spend $1 million to bring in those equipment, I'm going to spend another 30% to pay for your taxes. That means I have to borrow more money, that means I am increasing the cost of capital, which may not make sense. But if the exemptions are around a project that is profitable, a project that is after they have spent all they have vis-a-vis the revenues, they have a profit of 100 million and you exempt, that is not right, because all profitable ventures are supposed to pay taxes. I think that is what should be policy design of energy projects. Thanks.
So one last question online from Robert Kavuma about the role of nuclear energy. What do you see as its future, maybe in Uganda or Africa?
I now have to switch my mind to nuclear energy. But thank you for that question. Nuclear energy still has a role to play today. The same way we are saying oil and gas has a role to play even within the transition. As Africa and our energy poverty, we need all avenues where we can get energy for our populations. And just like the oil and gas sector, the nuclear energy comes with its own challenges. So issues of environmental challenges, how do we deal with paint nuclear rods? How do we buffer against accidents, which could be at a very big magnitude? If you remember the Fukushima Daiichi, a nuclear power disaster, what happened there? We wouldn't want to see something similar happening in Uganda or in any other African country. I know Uganda has positioned nuclear as part of its energy in the energy mix. We should have nuclear there. So what is important is to put in place safeguards, both social and environmental, if we're going to benefit and to see minimum impact, environmental impact from nuclear. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that comes or wraps it up for the questions. I thank you for your patience once again. I thank our panelists for making it here. Welcome, Yamana, to Kampala. Like I pointed out, this is our future. We hope that they take ADR seriously and they become experts in the various forms of ADR, arbitration being the main means, and then we see how to transform Africa. So we hope that you have been able to enjoy the session. We thank you. We thank LDC through the ADR class or the ADR practice head, Mr. Aridin Patson, who has made sure that we are able to give it to the students as an opportunity to see what the future looks like. So with that, I think the session is closed. Before the panelists take leave of the podium, request to have a photo for purposes of